LAPD. So everybody, I want to introduce you to Officer Blair Gabler. Blair, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're from West LAPD Traffic, right?
So actually I'm from, can you guys all hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm actually West Traffic Division.
Okay.
I'm part of the Community Traffic Safety Unit, so short for CTSU. I am assigned to West LA, so I work all the complaints that come through related to traffic. Those are what I handle. So that's
Okay.
kind of how my unit works.
Okay. So everyone, that's now you know who we've got on. We also have Lou, who's our transportation advisor, who's been doing some studying, and then we also have Brian Espen, who was kind enough to set up this meeting for us. So Brian, do you want to say anything or tee this up somehow? And then I'm going to have Lou kind of remind us all what we've been enduring the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Thanks, Maren. I was just going to actually let Blair, because I know she did a little bit of legwork the last couple of days for this meeting, because I know there was a lot of concern about the increased traffic congestion. So we were trying to figure out what possibly contributed to it. So Blair, she's the one that did all the work on it. So she has more of the info of if there was any changes on our end. So I'll let her speak real quick.
Okay.
So
Lou,
a lot of people don't. Oh, go ahead.
Blair, 1 second. Let me just let Lou, who's our transportation advisor and has been on top of it all, sort of say hello to everybody and tell us what he's got. Lou?
Hey, everyone. I'm Lou Kamer. I'm the transportation advisor for PPCC. And what we have is some data and also some things we've tried to improve the situation. First of all, to see what it, as everybody else on this call related to this is talking about, what is causing it? What can we do about it? And how do we get those things moving?
Okay, so then I am going to give it to Blair. Officer Gabler, thank you for joining us. Tell us what you've been able to find, and let's see if we can figure out why we've had standstill a couple of times this month.
So I know you guys had that major traffic accident with the oil rig. Other than that, we have a traffic analysis unit. They pretty much run all the numbers. So each bureau is broken up, and then it's broken up even more into divisions. So specifically West Los Angeles, Wilshire, Olympic, Hollywood, so on and so forth. As far as West LA goes, the traffic accidents in that area have not increased whatsoever. So they ran all the numbers, and it's been minor traffic accidents as far as like exchange of infos, no major, we call them A's or K's in the area. According to someone that I spoke to at DOT, I know Sunset Boulevard specifically is considered a high volume roadway. They seem to think that part of it's being contributed to the new, it's not new, but the new traveling system Waze. They're sending everybody for some weird reason through Sunset Boulevard. So he has reached out to Waze to see if there's other alternative routes for people to end up taking, because I know that's causing you guys a lot of, it's the cadets behind me running. I know that's causing a lot of congestion for you guys. So we're trying to work on that for you guys. I have a lot of my fellow officers. I work specifically day watch, so I'm like a 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. girl, but my guys work the evening times, and I mean, a lot of them shoot speed up there, so they can't even shoot speed at this point. It's getting so congested. So they seem to believe that the Waze is somehow routing people strictly through Sunset Boulevard. So they've reached out to Waze, they've contacted them. We're trying to work on our alternative routes for you guys to open it up a little bit and give you guys a little less congestion, but it is considered a high volume roadway. So, and like I said, our traffic analysis unit has not come up with any major traffic accidents that they have heard of or been notified of, and we haven't responded to anything as well.
So Sunset Boulevard, you're saying, is a high volume roadway?
Sunset Boulevard, PCH, all those main thoroughways right there.
Which happen to be like the only two we have that are main in and out of town, because Chautauqua can't be a main roadway. Temescal is, right? Is Temescal Canyon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Is under repair, but hopefully will again be 2 lanes going up and down. Okay.
Yeah, there is a lot of construction going on, specifically in the morning times. I know specifically for that reason. I've been up there visiting a bunch of the schools, and it's congestion nonstop with all the construction going on as well.
Okay, so I want to say there was the big rig accident that had traffic snarled from something like 7 a.m. to like 3 or 4 in the afternoon one day. But then the next week, and Lou, maybe you can help me out with specifics, but the next week was another traffic snarl that had people stuck for a couple of hours. And then just last week, I think it was a twofer again. There was maybe somebody on the Ferris wheel in Santa Monica. And then there was also maybe a fatal motorcycle accident on PCH. And those two together, again, had people waiting, upwards of an hour on PCH or Sunset or wherever trying to get home. So we wouldn't normally bring this to your attention. What's a little traffic in Los Angeles? The reason we do bring it to your attention is that we have long, and this is why Carl is on the call, we have long talked about the fact that this community is lodged between a mountain range and an ocean. And we are in a very high fire severity zone. The entirety of Pacific Palisades sits in a very high fire severity zone. And so if we ever did have to evacuate, we have all gotten a glimpse in the last few weeks or the last months or so. We've gotten a glimpse of what it might look like if we had to evacuate and there was suddenly a rush of people on the roads and the roads didn't quite move the way that we expect them to. I mean, I think we all, I don't mean to be alarmist, but I think we all think it wouldn't be pretty. So we wanted to talk to you about A, why are these things happening more often than most of us remember? And B, what can we do to improve communication so people don't come into a road that's already blocked? And 3, what are you guys doing, or what can we help you? Probably not much that we can help you do, but what are you guys doing to make this flow a little bit better?
Well, there was the incident in Santa Monica. You're talking about the guy that climbed on the Ferris wheel and hung out for a little bit. I don't have any details with that. Obviously, that's Santa Monica PD. Yes, I'm sure that caused a lot of traffic for you guys. As far as what we're doing, I mean, those are 2 main roadways. There's not much we can do at this point. I mean, we go out and enforce the traffic laws. But other than that, if there's a major incident and you guys do need to deploy, what LAPD normally does is, like, example, the fires, for example, right? They use motors for a lot of it. Oh, can you guys?
Wait, what happened? They use.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
So, like, for example, the fires that you guys experienced a few years ago, motors are used for a lot of that, but we're used because we can get in and out quicker than anybody else can to evacuate people. The way it works is motors or LAPD or DOT, whoever we can get at that point, is going to direct you guys out in the safest manner that we can to avoid anything that we can avoid. Obviously, fires coming our direction, we're going to evacuate you guys the opposite direction. So, I mean, it's hard when there's only really 2 main ways out of there, if you will. So we do our best to get you guys in and out as quick as we can. I'm actually a new motor, so I have not experienced a major catastrophe, if you will. I've only been on the bike for a little over a year now, but I know for a fact that the motors were out there in the Palisades, escorting you guys out and getting you away from danger as best as we could. But like I said, they're going to end up stopping all the stoplights, and then traffic and essentially police officers are going to dictate the flow of traffic to hopefully move it quicker, because the light system isn't going to work at that point.
Right.
Like I said, as far as what we're doing, we're out there enforcing the traffic laws as much as we can on a daily basis. We're definitely open for any suggestions, and we work well with, DOT. I work well with all the senior leads. I'm willing to come to your guys' community meetings if you guys have ideas you want to toss out, or you guys can email me and I can deploy my unit and we can help flow traffic any way you guys think. But Waze is a big problem right now. And I know, like I said, my buddy from DOT is reaching out to them to see if we can get another path to, like, make some space. But at this point, I can tell you this, the people I'm pulling over, when I'm asking them how they got here and why they're in traffic, it says Waze sent them this way.
Wow.
So half the people I pull over are lost and have no idea where they're at because Waze is sending them that way. So like I said, I've reached out to my people, and I'm hopefully going to get an answer here within the next few days of how we can kind of alleviate this for you guys a little bit.
Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you for having someone reach out to Waze. I think maybe we'll form a task force of some sort to stay in touch with you. And you've offered to come up here and sort of help us maybe go over some of the routes or whatever the case may be. I think that might be helpful because, I've said this in other meetings, I think for Palisadians to be able to visualize what an evacuation might look like could be helpful. For people on this call who've lived here for years, and they can tell you their experience, but a few years ago, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, there was an evacuation. There have been a few, I'd say, in the last 5 years, but a few years ago, there was an evacuation and Temescal Canyon came to a standstill. I don't remember that there were any LAPD, directing traffic. I think we were relying on lights, and Lou will tell us we don't have adaptive lights. So, it is what it is. Maybe it's you guys have a new strategy where you plan on having, police or traffic police directing the flow of traffic so it doesn't stop the way it did then. But again, it is a major concern. Traffic doesn't move. And when it comes to a halt, it stays at a halt for hours. It's not a quick thing. And so, when we're getting to Pilates appointments, it's one thing. When we're trying to save our lives, it's going to be entirely another.
Correct.
And then any other questions? Jacob is on the board, so he'll have. I'll call on Jacob first, but Lou, you want to say anything or wrap it up in any way or impart some wisdom to us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I founded the Waze community program here, and we are tied directly into Waze when there are crises or anything that comes up. We can make changes and help to support transportation departments and police, any of first responders. And we try, the one thing that's really important with Waze to remember is that Waze is not a navigation program. The way that police or anybody would want you to go during certain times would be usually a straight line. Waze will take you off because Waze is based on time. It just wants to save you time on the journey, not necessarily get you from A to B the fastest, if that makes sense. So LA DOT and the police and everybody is trying to implement a plan and get a route to get most cars out that they can at a time. But Waze is working against that, especially in emergencies, which are the most dangerous. So please bring me into that conversation. I can help to make some changes, and we can make the connections that we need between city and the people who are actually on the ground in Waze, which is really just a computer program.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say, I think Lou does have some connections with Waze.
But beyond that, the other thing that I think we have to remember is that we are in just the reality of where we're located. In some cases, there is no way that if something happens on PCH that we're going to be able to clear traffic entirely and not cause bottlenecks. It's just the reality of the density that's happening and the number of cars and travelers who are going through. So at Chautauqua, for example, which is the busiest intersection, on average, we see a number of 81,000 cars a day go through there. And if you think about those going on Sunset, Sunset is not made for that number. And so everything breaks down. So we have to deal with the reality that things are going to get worse, but the steps we take, and hopefully with this task force and all of everybody coming together, we can help to solve or mitigate a lot of the issues and get people to where they need to get to, especially in emergency.
Okay, thanks, Lou. How many up and down Chautauqua?
No, we have 81,000 cars pass on a day, one day on PCH at Chautauqua. It's the busiest intersection in LA County, actually.
Wow, and it's a pretty complicated one. Okay, and it's a complex one. All right, so Mr. Chakarian, then Courtney, then Murray, then Daphne Gronick. So welcome, Pacific Palisades Rotary.
Okay, first of all, I don't think Waze is the problem. I don't use Waze and still have traffic. And number two, do you have any emergency evacuation plans? For example, simulate PCH game being closed for 2 hours at 3 o'clock as to what happens. And they'll work out a solution from these right now before it actually happens. You can try to predict what to do by simulation. And in my opinion, we are trapped. There's an accident, we're trapped. There's no way to get out. That's my opinion.
I can
Okay.
answer about the simulations. We did do simulations privately. I ran them to see what it looks like. And you're absolutely right. There is no way to move that number of cars through our neighborhood and through our city streets, especially with the inherent problem that happens at Sunset and the 405 and Santa Monica and San Vicente. We cannot overload and basically feed to those different areas to disperse traffic. It just can't be done at the rate that we need it to be done. It's almost like if you put too much water through a pipe, the pressure increases.
Carl, I'm not going to hand it over to you fully just yet, but Carl Ginsberg, are there evacuation drills planned for Pacific Palisades?
We have found that evacuation drills put a false sense of security into people. When we talk, do our presentation, and further when we do some training as we move you towards a fire safe counselor or firewise,
Okay.
We'll talk more about shelter in place and making your home safe for you to shelter in place, because that's probably going to be the best way to survive a fire in your area due to the traffic. And if you follow the guidelines that we'll present, you'll be safe in your home should you have to shelter in place. It's a tough problem, but it's the same all over the city. Every canyon is going to be a problem.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
We'll
We'll look forward to that. Okay, we'll look forward to that. All right, Courtney, Murray, Daphne.
Yes, I just wanted to echo the issues with Waze. I live in the Onedio Bluffs, and when Waze redirects people off of Sunset, like I've been stuck in my driveway for hours on end because no one can get out. They're narrow streets that aren't meant for all that kind of traffic. So that, and then in addition, regarding the motorcycles sort of helping to direct traffic, I got stuck in the simultaneous incident hours to get to Malibu after the it had taken me an hour max. And when I was at total standstill, there were motorcycle officers at the scene of the accident, but there was nobody directing traffic. It was a complete cluster. So you had everyone coming. They were actually allowing people to go eastbound through the California incline, knowing that there was no place for them to go. Like they should have been directing them up the incline, or I was telling people to make a U-turn back at, Chautauqua and into Santa Monica Canyon. There was nobody directing traffic. So I think that would be very helpful in the future. I know you guys are super shorthanded, but nobody knew what to do. And it was like almost another accident waiting to happen in that particular situation.
So, well, Murray and then Daphne, but for the two LAPD officers that are on the call, there are a lot of instances in the Palisades where we're told, don't worry, it'll work out when it happens. It'll flow the right way. Things will be in the right place and working as they should, when they need to. And I totally believe you, but it's sort of hard for us, for example, when we hear someone like Courtney talk about a traffic snarl where there was really nobody moving anything. So is it that if there is an emergency, resources will be deployed and so traffic will begin to move?
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna jump in here real quick, Blair.
So
just so everybody's we're all on the same page. The difference we're talking about now is just regular traffic congestion based on a traffic accident and detouring people around the accident. We LAPD will not deploy resources to just facilitate traffic around an accident. We will deploy like the motors and DOT when it's an evacuation. The motors will be probably the lead, most likely. I mean, the patrol officers can get there first, but the motors will be responding, and because they can get in and out of small spaces in between cars and up on the sidewalk if need be, to get in certain intersections to facilitate the flow. So like Blair was saying, what'll happen if let's say there's a major fire on the north end of the Palisades area. We need everybody to evacuate south. So we're going to shut down PCH and do what they call, I think I mentioned this the last meeting or two, the CHP, they call it contraflow, where they just shut down PCH and make it all a one direction exit. And then Sunset, same thing. It'll just be most likely a one direction exit going south on Sunset, maybe leaving one lane open for emergency crews to come into the problem. But motors, DOT, they will be at key intersections. They'll be placed. Now, we don't have enough to go at every intersection or every little block, but they'll be spread out at key intersections, and they won't go by the traffic lights. They will dictate the flow of traffic based on the cars and the people that they have coming in. So that's when I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, we're kind of reassuring. That's just what we can do. Okay. When something actually happens, I mean, like Lou said, we're just in a highly congested area with very limited exit routes. So we are going to be stuck. There's going to be traffic no matter what. When it comes to the accident that was on PCH and Entrada, where that semi truck clipped the gas tank and diesel fuel everywhere, it wasn't an evacuation where we needed to deploy our resources to better facilitate an exit of the Palisades. Could we have used DOT to help facilitate the flow of traffic? For sure. But we won't, as LAPD, we're going to be handling all the calls for service, the radio calls. We won't necessarily be able to assign police officers to help just move traffic along. It's just kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to living on the west side or living in LA. We're going to get hit with traffic whenever there's an accident. When I'm coming into work and there's an accident on the freeway, I'm going to be late. I already know that. So I'm not trying to sugarcoat, we'll say, when something happens, but we have ways to kind of help facilitate. Is it going to run perfectly? Who knows? Probably not, but at least we're going to do our best to try to move as many people out of the area as we can. And that's our main goal.
Okay. And that's when emergency sets in. Okay.
Correct.
Murray, Daphne, Karen.
Thanks. I would say Waze is a problem, at least in my area. Just this past Friday, there was a relatively minor accident on PCH and Topanga that kind of shut down PCH, and Waze just for a few minutes or maybe for half an hour. But Waze sent traffic up Tremonto to Puerto Marina to go back down to bypass the intersection of Sunset and PCH, and it took probably 3 hours for, I was out walking with my dog on Puerto Marina, and from PCH all the way up to the top of the hill. No, the street was totally clogged. A fire engine couldn't get through, an ambulance couldn't get through. I would say we should tell people, if you have to evacuate, at least from our hill in Casella Moore, leave the car in the garage and walk down to the beach. It's the only way you're going to save your ass.
Carl, I'm sure you caught that. Something to talk about. All right. Thank you, Marie. Daphne, then Karen.
Officer Espin answered one of my questions, which was, would they add an extra lane of traffic going the other way for an emergency? So that's helpful to know, because I know they do that in other cities. The other question I think comes to play between LAPD and Santa Monica and DOT, because a lot of the problems happen north and south of Chautauqua and evacuating and getting into areas that are Santa Monica. In an emergency, is there coordination, and does Santa Monica and LAPD speak so that they know what's happening if there's an emergency in the Palisades?
Yeah, so if there's an evacuation, where at least for the city, we would most likely get put on a TAC alert. for us here on the west side, and we do notify our neighboring agencies that we are on attack alert and why we're on attack alert. It's all if we're evacuating and like we said, we're doing that contraflow on PCH, CHP is going to be involved. Santa Monica PD is going to be involved because now they're going to have to direct cars coming northbound on PCH. We're not going to be LAPD. We're not going to be the ones blocking traffic. That's going to be Highway Patrol or the city of Santa Monica, because we're going to need everybody's help on that. So yeah, when there's an emergency, we do communicate and stuff like that. But when it's a regular, like for example, the guy up on the Ferris wheel, we're not going to communicate because it's not a life-threatening emergency for people stuck in traffic. We're not trying to evacuate an area or anything. So the communication in that aspect won't be going on.
The only reason I'm asking it for is that's a good example is people didn't realize that PCH was closed near the tunnel. So if they had let you know, then hopefully somebody could, DOT, whoever it is, could have put signs, no, you know, PCH closed, go the other way or go back over to Panga or whatever it is. It just feels like sometimes when there are serious accidents that are going to clog up for hours, there should be better communication so that they let you know so that you're not caught off guard if it's a Santa Monica issue and vice versa.
Yeah, that's something we could probably look into about. I mean, why did they? I'm just curious. So the guy was on the Ferris wheel. Why did they close the tunnel?
Because he was threatening he had a bomb, apparently.
Oh, okay.
As reported on the news.
Right. Well, and it happened to be at the same time, the time spans overlapped, where there was also an accident on PCH that involved the motorcyclist that I believe must have been Santa Monica. If you don't know about it, Officer Espen, but I believe it was a fatality. So the two of them together caused serious backlog. And I think part of what Daphne's talking about is something we've harped on before, just communication. There's got to be better communication. I think in some cases people rely on Waze because it's a method of letting us know what streets are clogged. So people go to Waze, they don't necessarily know what happened. They don't know it's a bomb threat on the Ferris wheel, but they can see the PCH is backed up for miles and miles. So they try to go other ways, which then, you know, spills over into our tiny streets. I know it's not an easy nut to crack, but there's got to be something because we are often stuck. And as I say, you know, it's one thing when it's our daily lives. It's going to be another thing when it's an emergency.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I can tell you for sure when there is the emergency, you're gonna see the more resources, and we're gonna be blocking intersections and so on when it's emergency. Okay. But when it's regular accidents and stuff like that, that's gonna be a little bit more on the difficult side for sure. But it's something to work on. I'm not saying it's not gonna happen. Just
and I don't know what that communication element is. I mean, I don't know if LAPD can have a way of like pinging every single phone, or if you would like the community to help. But you know, it'd be great to be able to get information out, not just to the board, but to everybody. Okay, yeah. Karen.
Hello, I'm Karen, and I am a resident of El Medio Bluffs. On that day when there was the motorcycle accident, I tried to leave my community and go on Sunset Boulevard. Impossible, because the traffic was gridlocked already. My question is, why is there not an immediate resource of a traffic control direction that overrides the traffic lights in the Palisades that go from, I guess, Sunset all the way through to the 405 freeway? If there was something that happens and blocks the traffic, causing gridlock, as others have said, the traffic diverts when you know a special route. I live on Northfield Street. You can't even make a right from Sunset onto Northfield. So what they use is Bienvenida to go south towards the beach and get through to Temescal. But the issue is, even when I did that, trying to go over to Temescal and then north to Sunset, I couldn't move. You know, I was trying to go through that route near the Playhouse into the town. We need some way of immediately getting traffic directing personnel to the Palisades to override the traffic lights that are slow and cause the backup. Because once I passed in through the town, it was okay.
Okay.
But it's just from the Coast Highway up through the center of town, Chautauqua, let us say, that the lights schedule just backs things up like crazy. And so I'm
Okay,
wondering,
so the, on,
what can we do to get that traffic director immediately to the source to override the traffic lights?
so the adaptive, I'm gonna let whoever wants to answer this answer it, but the adaptive lights would solve this problem, right? And until we get
Well-
the adaptive lights, it's Caltrans, Officer Espen, or it's LADOT? But that, our lights are manual, from what I understand. Somebody
Yeah,
actually.
I'm
come out
assuming
here.
it's DOT street services or street engineering. Really quick, because I
Yeah.
know she's actually on duty doing a task force tonight, but she stepped on. So if anybody has any questions specific for her, for motors or anything, I can kind of answer the rest of them. But I know she jumped on the meeting in the middle of her task force she's doing, so I don't want to hold her up too long.
I have a quick question for you, Blair. If
Yeah.
your traffic, so
Yes.
if something happens, if there's a traffic accident or a collision or a traffic incident that impacts a couple of streets, or maybe the high volume streets you're talking about, do you guys have a way of getting that out? Like, do you guys say, oh, wow, tiny community, little streets, we better let people know? Do you have a way of letting us know?
I mean, our social media is pretty active. I know our Instagram, I don't run our Instagram. I know they're pretty active, so they post on live stories all the time. If there is an incident. Other than that, I mean, I would start, some sort of, I know a lot of neighborhoods do, I'm thinking Nextdoor app. I see things on there all the time.
Okay.
But as far as like
informal
us
channels.
specifically, as far as us specifically letting people know,
Yeah.
no, because we're too busy trying to get to the scene. We don't have time to tweet out anything about it. So by the time we get there, it's just dealing with casualties and making sure everybody's safe and trying to get the flow of traffic going. We don't have time to tweet anything or send an instant message out or anything like that.
So the communication link is definitely missing. Elisa?
Hi there, Officer Gabler. I'm the education rep at Canyon School, and I'm just wondering, we've been having a lot of trouble getting a crossing guard at school, and we have 3 crosswalks that are pretty dangerous.
Okay.
Do you know, like, does this fall at all under your purview in terms of our inability to get? I mean, it involves traffic and pedestrians and.
Yeah, of course. So what you can do, I'll let Officer Espen give you guys my email address. If you just email me the school, the area, I'll create a complaint location for that. As far as getting a crossing guard, that's on you guys. You could get parent volunteers or someone to assist their time to help with the crossing guard thing. But as far as enforcing the laws and actually getting out there and like making sure people are stopping and high visibility and things like that, that's something my unit can definitely handle.
So just so you know, Officer Gabler, they have been trying to get that crossing guard desperately. They even have a willing crossing guard, but LAUSD is having trouble hiring that particular willing crossing guard for this location. And they don't get too many willing crossing guards, so they're holding on to this pretty tight. But until
been told that it's a city. Yeah.
Yeah, until that comes through, I'm going to encourage Officer Espen to share your email with Elisa. I'll stay in the loop if it's helpful. But yes, if your division could potentially give them some help, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. Just email me the school, your name, and the intersections that you're concerned about and what the issues are, and I can have my unit work that problem for you.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
It's a perilous stretch of land, just so you know. It is a road that has, I mean, we have at least 3 issues going up and down that road. So it's well worth your attention.
Okay.
Get it over to you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Feel free to send me anything you guys need.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Officer Gabler.
All right, you guys. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Okay, Lou, should we stay on this topic or should we go over to Carl Ginsberg and talk about fire safety and then come back to it? Tell me. I do want you to tell the board about adaptive lights.
All that whenever you want.
I want you to do that now because I also want everybody to know that Malibu raised money for adaptive lights. They're not cheap, but it does help the flow of their traffic. You know, as has been the case on a lot of issues in the last few months, you guys, it's almost like Pacific Palisades, it's on its own. You know, sometimes we do have to raise money to get things done. This might be one of them once you hear what it is, and, you know, conversation for another day, but tell us what they are, Lou.
Yes. Well, let me, first of all, I want to make a couple of comments that may be helpful now regarding Waze. yes, it has its drawbacks, tremendous ones, but we can also put messages in there and tell people that PCH is closed. We can give out warnings to our local area and any drivers who are coming through there. So that's one positive thing. And then Miriam, I think you also said, look at ways, see where the roads are clogged. And then if you know the way out of your neighborhood, and this was brought up at the wildfire mitigation meeting, then take that way. The fastest way usually to get out. So do that. That's the most important thing. In terms of adaptive lights, LA does have an adaptive. LA City is adaptive. We have lights that are connected to a computer downtown that controls the flow based on how many cars are there. So if you're sitting at a red light, it will change relatively quickly because it knows you're there and it knows there's not other traffic coming. On PCH, we don't have that. Malibu, as Miriam says, is building theirs. And what it does is it reduces crashes. It helps in emergencies, evacuations, or when there are issues at, say, PCH with all the closures. All of that would have been sent through the computer to everybody at Caltrans so that they would know immediately that something's going on, adjust the lights, and also get their crews out to fix whatever's going on. So adaptive signals and traffic and something that we control is one of the greatest tools we can use now and during an emergency. And I advocate that we should really push for it as a community, because it's not only going to help us, but it's going to extend from Malibu through LA and then down into Santa Monica all the way to the tunnel. And this is just too dangerous and congested a thoroughfare right now for us to deal with just on our own. We need tech.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I hope that can be something that we can consider. It won't be on this agenda, but I can put it on another agenda, have maybe DOT come and talk about it and see if these adaptive lights are something we want to consider funding as a community, because it does sound like it would make the flow of traffic better. And as much as I trust Officer Espen and LAPD, I do think that evacuation is just wrought with peril. We've all experienced one or two, and it's not quite smooth. So anyway, we will bring that again. Anybody have any questions or comments about this adaptive light idea? Okay, so with that, I will introduce Mr. Carl Ginsberg. Carl is from MySafe LA. He's been working in the Brentwood community, if I'm not mistaken, and also in other hillside communities. We met him downtown at the fire mitigation roundtable that CD11 convened. And so I invited him to come and talk to us so he could inform us a little bit about what we can do on a defensive basis, and then tell us a little bit about what MySafe LA does. I mean, what resources you have to bring to a community. There's something called fire safe councils. They do this in Brentwood. I think they do it along Mandeville. So there are groups of people who come together and sort of protect their communities with specific strategies. And I thought it'd be great if we hear about that. So Carl, you've got the floor, and thank you for coming.
No, thank you for having me. We are MySafe LA, like you said. We're a nonprofit. We do a lot of things in the city and the county. We teach safety in elementary schools to students. We do certified CPR training. We install smoke alarms throughout the city, thousands of them each year. And now we are involved with the Fire Safe Council, which is funded by CAL FIRE, which is part of our state fire department. And we also are funded by FEMA and other organizations. And we have an agreement with an MOU with the City of Los Angeles Fire Department to work with them, and we work very closely with the fire department. And part of what we do with the Fire Safe Council is involved with the city and the entire county of Los Angeles. So I've also brought along our executive director, Dave Barrett. He'll give you a little presentation on the more details of what we do, and then we'll meet in person at another date, and we'll give you all the actual details. We'll give you some paperwork to look at, and go from there to move you towards becoming a Fire Safe Council. And then we'll explain all the benefits that brings to mind. So, David, if you want to take over at this point.
Okay, David Barrett. I know he's on.
So would it be possible to share my screen?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry. Hang on one second. I keep losing my mouse.
Mice tend to run away.
Well, especially if there's a cat in the house, or they bring them in the house, actually.
All right. So David Barrett, let me find you and give you screen sharing. Okay. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Outstanding. And you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Terrific. So good evening. As Carl indicated, my name is David Barrett, and both of us are part of an organization that is involved in community resilience and support. We've worked with the Los Angeles City Fire Department for 15 years. We work with 52 different fire departments across the state of California. And wildfire is a very important issue. I think one of the most important things that I can share with you before I dive into this, and it'll be a fairly quick presentation, is that our organization is designed to solve every single question that was raised today that I've heard so far. We're here to try and bridge the gap between the silos that exist between different agencies. And that's why, for example, in LA, by working with all 29 LA area fire departments, the LAPD, LA County Sheriff's Department, and so on, we can find out where those gaps exist and try and fill them in as it relates to supporting a community and to making it a little bit richer. And I can add some stuff related to traffic and that sort of thing and evacuation at the end of this short presentation, if you're interested in that. So if we look at the National Risk Index, dark blue being very safe and bright red being very dangerous, you can see that there's very few places in the country where things are extremely dangerous. But if we zoom in, we're in the most dangerous part of the entire United States relative to wildfire. And this is FEMA's determination through research, fire responses, losses, both related to life, property, and cost. And so overall, it's not just fire that we're concerned about: lightning, wind effects, flooding. Having lived in Pacific Palisades, I own a house on Adelaide, just above the canyon in Santa Monica. So I'm in the Palisades almost weekly. It's a community I'm very familiar with, and I understand that, particularly if you're dealing with Sunset or Entrada, it can be pretty unnerving for you. But let's discuss wildfire tonight. It's really the most important reason to be here. And of course, for those of you that attended Tracy Parks, she did this monthly for a number of months. The one thing I would share with you is that those meetings are kind of a blue sky, what does everyone think about, as opposed to providing specific direction. But I would also note that Tracy is extremely committed to her constituents. So if we're talking about adaptive signal control technology, which Lou was alluding to earlier, communities don't typically plan or pay for that. The city does, and Tracy would be very open to hearing about that. It would be a huge win for her if she was able to establish the funding and get that executed. So that's just one of the many things that we can support you in, because we meet with her office all the time. So as we talked about earlier, we're surrounded, right? And the threat of wildfire, it's not in our presentation, but I'll tell you, the threat of wildfire starting in 2017, and it hasn't changed in terms of looking forward. In the county of Los Angeles, it's 100%. It's the highest rating in the country. It's higher than Riverside, it's higher than Santa Barbara County or San Bernardino County. It's 100%. And as we look forward to 2024, the expectation is that it will be 100% again. If we look around, we see that the San Fernando Valley is surrounded. The valley itself is a floor, right? But everything around it, including the Palisades and the Palisades Highlands and through Malibu and so on, anything across the Santa Monica Mountains is in the very high fire severity zone. And all of that lovely rain that we had at the beginning of the year, you saw how beautiful the hillsides were and how that growth was terrific. To me, it's just fuel. And that fuel can go from being filled with moisture and being resilient to being dried out and ready to burn in less than a day. So if the conditions are right, if the humidity is low and the temperature is high and so on. So all of that stuff is beautiful to begin with, but it ends up being dangerous. And so as we look forward to the coming year, this is a great time to be taking steps to mitigate the issues related to wildfire. Because next year, I'm particularly worried about what will happen next year. I should also mention, by the way, you see Carl and I are in uniform. Anyone in our organization that wears a uniform is a first responder. So we have EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, a wide range of people. Our organization trains all 3,400 LA City firefighters every year in one tactic or another. And so we are deeply involved and engaged in the hierarchy of first responder mechanisms in the city. This quote from Cornell is really important because when we talk about fire prevention and recovery, there's always money after a wildfire. There's always, like, we need to rebuild, we need to donate, we need to do things that are important, but there isn't often money or effort before. And it's kind of like asking someone to stop smoking. If they're smoking and they feel healthy and they can run on the beach in the morning and they feel terrific, then they can stop smoking next week. And the same thing is true right now. If you think about wildfire, we haven't had significant wildfires this year. So like most things in a large urban environment, we have so many things going on that we tend to forget about it until it's right in our face. I was really pleased tonight to see so many people here in attendance and to see how many people are really actively engaged and concerned about making sure that Pacific Palisades is safe from any kind of issue. There is an effort that's been in place for a year called the Wildfire Alliance. It's the full name is the Los Angeles Wildfire Resilience Alliance. It is a partnership between the Los Angeles City Fire Department and My Safe LA. We're just adding LA County Fire, Glendale Fire, Santa Monica Fire, and San Marino Fire to the mix in November. And if you look at the photo here on the side, you'll see a whole series of destroyed homes. But in the foreground, there are 3 homes that are completely untouched. And that's the key of what we are trying to teach people about and to help people, is to make sure that they can do everything they can to reduce the chance of their home burning. And Carl will talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So once again, as it relates to us, we are the wildfire coordinator as designated by CAL FIRE, the state's fire prevention organization and firefighting organization that is statewide. We coordinate all outreach to all of the area fire departments, and we help organizations like yours to become better prepared, to have more confidence and be more comfortable, and to be more resilient. We hold monthly meetings. We're the Master Fire Safe Council for the County of Los Angeles. We have really important, good guest speakers. In fact, our next meeting is next week on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. And our guest speaker is going to be from EMD, and we're going to be talking about communication, particularly in canyons and other areas where it may not be as good as it might be. And Carl will put our agenda in the chat so that if you're interested in that, you can download it and see what's going on. So we have a workbook, and Carl could talk about that a little bit more in a moment, but we support a homeowners association or neighborhood council in doing the things that will make them more resilient. The easy thing to talk about is to have an objective, becoming a FireWise USA site or a Fire Safe Council. That's really up to you. Our overall thing is to teach you to be more prepared. If you want to be a Fire Safe Council, we can help you get there faster. And of course, we need to define it for you. But the most important thing is to understand what's going on relative to how that works. And it's on 3 levels: community, preparing community; responders, making sure that the relationship between community and fire and police and so on is solid; and the results. We count everything so that we know exactly how many homes we've been to, how many people we've spoken to, how many fire safe councils are being developed, and all that sort of stuff. And we are working with a wide array, all 10 of the HOAs that are in the Mountain Gate environment, Brentwood, Bel Air Crest, Bel Air, and very happy to move up and perhaps to help you guys as well as multiple HOAs in the San Fernando Valley and other places. Our goal is to try and get approximately 100,000 people better prepared over the course of the next 18 months. So if you work with us, we're going to help you create a wildfire specific committee. I've already heard tonight that you are good about a task force or about having a committee and having not only a primary person, but having backup people. That puts you ahead of 95% of the organized groups in the city. You're doing a terrific job. I can already tell that, and that's really, really important. We'll teach you about why rebuilding starts before a fire occurs. And we'll ask you about where's the worst place you could be in a wildfire. I think some of you already know that based on the conversation that took place. Communications, what are the roles and responsibilities? Homeowners have certain expectations, but they're not necessarily realistic. And so trying to make sure that you understand what is truth and then bringing that truth to power so that you're able to communicate with all the residents that rely on you and make sure that everyone is going to have the right tools to be safe. That's really what our job is, and that's what we're here to do. So we're here to talk about, not tonight, but about how home ignition zones are important and what program deliverables there are. Carl, if you want to go through the deliverables, I think that would be a really good thing. You're muted, Carl.
The main part of the deliverables is the workbook that we provide, which is a guide step by step to move through forming a committee to manage the project, assigning roles to the members of the committee, holding meetings. We'll provide you with handouts that you can disperse throughout your community. You can put them on your website. So we'll talk about those. Talk about home hardening and creating defensible space around your home, with the purpose of making your home less likely to burn if there is a wind-driven fire, because of amber cast is going to precede and come behind the fire. And if you evacuate, you'll have a home to come back to. If you have to shelter in place, you'll be safe within your home. So we'll provide you with lists, all kinds of information that you can put out, and it will be a guide to make things around your home a lot safer than they may be at this point.
Terrific, Carl. Thank you. I think one of the most important things that we can talk about relative to wildfire is if there's nothing to burn, then it won't. So if your home has fewer things that could ignite on the outside, and if it's better protected to prevent embers or fire from getting to the inside, there's much less of a chance of the home burning. And if homes are properly defended, if the residents take the steps to defend their homes, and if they understand what evacuation means, which most people do not, we found, I mean, it doesn't matter where in the state we talk to, people do have a misunderstanding about evacuation. So it's one thing we're very happy to teach and to explain in some detail. But if there are fewer things to burn, then your home has less of a chance of burning. And most homes don't burn when the fire front moves through, they burn afterwards from what Carl just referred to as the ember cast. And so if you are in the home, then there might be a good reason for you to stay there. And we'll talk more about that as well. This is all free. There's no cost for any of the stuff that we do. Because we are a nonprofit organization, we are happy to accept donations, and a lot of entities do support us that way. We're primarily funded through state and federal grants. We've been doing this for a long time, and our people are truly experts in what we do and what we understand. So having said that, there's a terrific book for those of you that have Apple devices on wildfires in Southern California. It's got a lot of good educational information in it that you can download. It's not just a picture book, but it's a really good interactive dynamic book. And our next Fire Safe Council meeting is next Thursday. And you can learn more about it either through the agenda that Carl hopefully has put into the chat, and or going to our wildfire website, which is wildfirela.org/ready. You can also download and listen to previous meetings that we've had, where we've had deputy chiefs, we've had the State Insurance Commission's office to speak, we've had evacuation experts speak, weather experts speak. So each one of these meetings is designed to provide you with some really good feedback and interaction. Carl, talk a little bit about what the process of collaborating with the homeowners group is, beyond the workbook.
Beyond the workbook, part of what we do is do a ride through of your neighborhood to assess what the condition of the neighborhood is related to the danger of the wildfire. We'll look for overgrowth of flora in the neighborhood, and we know that there's a lot of that due to the rain that occurred. And we will make recommendations as to what you can do to improve the situation in your neighborhood as a whole. And then we can go home to home in certain cases to look at each home and see what are the danger zones. Help you to create the defensible space in incremental areas. The first 5 feet around your house are the most important area to protect and to remove any possible source of ignition should the ember cast come in and try to prevent it from creating a fire against your house or getting under the eaves of your house, and then protecting the areas from 5 feet out to 30 feet out, which means trimming your trees, making sure that there's no flammable overgrowth of light grasses that could ignite trees or ignite anything else around your home. Make sure that you don't stack things that can burn around your home, like firewood. And when there is the risk of a fire, if you have wooden furniture on your patio or around your home that's close by, we'll recommend that you move it out or move it indoors. So anything you can do to make sure that there's nothing to burn within those 2 zones will make your house more protected against the ember cast that is going to flow from the fire.
Good.
That's pretty much the thrust of that area. So once your home is hardened, chance of survival of the structure is much higher.
So one of the other things that we try and do in terms of managing, I mean, getting a homeowners association or a community group such as yours, those are the active people. So getting you involved is not necessarily so difficult, but getting all the other people who live in the community that you're in to take the action or to participate or to understand what's going on, that does become more of a challenge. And so part of our job is to help create incentive and to help folks have a little bit better of an understanding about why it's important for them to take steps to make their home and their community safer. We're all sick and tired of being told what to do. A lot of us still have a COVID hangover, if you will. So we try and communicate this in a way where people can understand about why there's a benefit and why it's a positive thing for them to do, and to perhaps do it without spending a lot of money, because money is always an issue. A lot of people have lived in their home for 30 or 40 years and they own it outright now, but they still have insurance issues and tax issues and other things, which makes finances challenging. So we're trying to make sure that we can help increase the benefit as it relates to that. If you are able to become a Fire Safe Council or a Firewise USA site, then you open the door to being able to get a number of different kinds of grants. And that kind of funding, it's not necessarily what you would get at one of your community meetings, but somewhere between $5,000 and $25,000 per grant is a possibility. And there's many things that you can do with that. One of the other things that we do is we help produce, we don't necessarily do it on our own, but we collaborate, for example, with PPCC to create a wildfire specific event. I know that Tracy Park did an event in the Pacific Palisades that we were part of a couple of months ago. It could have been a little bit better, I think. But we're in the process of doing one with all of the Brentwood area homeowners associations. All 9 of them are participating. We're gonna have a wildfire fair at the Brentwood School on November the 5th. We'll have air operations flyover and static displays. There'll be thousands of dollars in gifts for people and prizes, go bags for everyone, activities for kids. There will be all kinds of food, all of it free to attendees, so that people have a reason to come. And having said that, that's something that we would be happy to talk about doing up in the Palisades as well.
Okay.
So I want to kind of stop because I don't want to take too much time in terms of our main presentation, but I can tell you that if you want us to share anything about evacuation and or traffic structure, which maybe is a little bit different than what LAPD would share. What LAPD is doing and what they share is outstanding, and your slows and your motors and anyone involved in, particularly in West LA, Rich Gabaldon is doing a great job with his folks. He's the commander there, and I think it's really a good opportunity because they go out of their way to be supportive of the community. We're here in a different kind of a capacity, but one that may be helpful to you. So if you want us to talk about that a little bit more, we can.
Okay.
Overall,
So
I would
I'm
simply
gonna
say that
break
Carl
in.
and I are open to questions.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of things. First of all, the PPCC is kind of a gateway to the rest of the Palisades.
Right.
Unlike other neighborhood or community councils, HOAs aren't here, but we do have representatives, 3 in every case. 3 for every area of the Palisades, and we've broken the Palisades up into 8 areas. And so my hope was that each of those areas would get a little bit of an introduction to you today, so that we could figure out which of those areas are interested in reaching out to you and learning about being fire councils. So I will put that information out there, and I'm hoping that you'll have area reps reaching out to you to learn about fire councils. You put a map up on the screen, and it showed that the entire Pacific Palisades is in the very high fire severity zone.
That's
some
right.
of our communities are made up almost exclusively of hillside streets, some narrower than others. I think those communities are probably going to be first to reach out to you and want to learn about fire councils. Well, with the exception of 3 of our areas, all of our areas do also have HOAs, and I'm happy to make an introduction to those HOAs so that they know that you're there. I have the PPCC, again, sort of the broader organization of the Palisades. I've appointed the fire sort of task force. And I think maybe the first thing I can do is to put that task force in touch with you guys and have them learn more so that they can report to us what we can do as a community. I understand that you can go into smaller areas of the Palisades and work on fire councils, but I think generally all of us learning more about home hardening would probably be helpful. We did have the insurance commissioner talk to us last week about savings that are available to homeowners who harden their homes. So I think that's all something we're interested in. As far as your offer to tell us more about evacuation and traffic, I think we'd probably be happy to hear that. I'll put the committee in touch with you. Some of us happened to see the Brentwood Community Council chair last night. She did tell us about the November 5th event, which sounds great. She said that it was sort of for Brentwood, tailor-made for Brentwood. And I can tell you that we'd be very interested in speaking to you about something for the Palisades, because again, evacuating for us is something real. And I heard you saying that not everybody knows what evacuation is or how to do it well. Well, these are all things that we've long talked about learning. So I think you're a great resource to us. I'm sure you won't be able to impart everything we need to know in one meeting, but I am going to put our own committee in touch with you to figure out how we can learn more, maybe set up one of those evacuations or whatever you call that program. And then I'm going to put you in touch with the area reps or the HOAs to see if we can develop some fire councils throughout the community. Home hardening is something I think people would like to hear about. I don't think you want another hour to tell us. It does miff me that homes that are made of wood can be hardened, but I think we're all interested in learning more. So I thank you, and I'm just going to ask you to sort of wait for next steps. We will do them, and we will engage you in a big way. We definitely need you here, and I'm glad we were able to find Carl. So questions, everyone? Questions for Carl and David? Hagop.
You talked about putting smoke alarms in the city. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Parev, inch pesos.
Lovin.
Okay. We install smoke alarms and CO detectors in homes for people that are typically disadvantaged. But we do go everywhere, and we've done multiple canvassings in the Palisades, both in the Highlands and in the Palisades proper. And we have found that every single home that we've visited in the Palisades has smoke alarms. They're all 30 or 40 years old and they don't work anymore. So we replace them at no cost. And we inspect the homes and we explain to people how they can properly escape from a structure fire, from a home fire, and how to talk to 911 efficiently so that you get resources there as quick as possible. And if they're kids, we teach them about get low and go and so on. So we're an active part of making all sections of Los Angeles safer.
That's all.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to point out to everybody was, David, you said early on that you think that the councilwoman's office would be open to our advocacy for adaptive lights. And I think that's great. So I'll put that on an upcoming agenda. And if the board agrees, I think we'll start in that direction. If this is a good part of the district for her to, advocate for that or get funding, I'm sure we'd be happy to be that kind of pilot district for her.
She's the key.
Okay, great. Karen?
You're muted, Karen. Karen, you're muted.
Bill? No, there you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I had my house evaluated by a state organization that came to my house and pointed out how to harden my house for free. And it was some group that was up in Topanga Canyon. I think it maybe was under the state, but that's available to anybody who wants it. And I have one of those homes that is wood on the outside, except for certain portions, which are stucco. And they talked about, all the openings around doors and gates and doors, mainly cupboards and things, and exposures of areas where air can get out that are open to the cinders of fires that can get into your property that way. I mean, they went through an hour examination or more, and they gave me a very specific description of what I needed to do to really make that house hardened. Now I'm circled by eucalyptus trees. And I understand the damage, that could happen there. And I am at the head of a canyon on Northfield Street. So if anyone wants to avail themselves of that, that's a resource. I forget the name of the group, but I could look it up and provide it to the organization to send out as information later. Perhaps you could identify the group.
So there are multiple entities that do that type of work, and often it is without charge initially. All of that requirement has changed in the last 2 months. And so anything that was done a year or 2 or 3 ago doesn't count any longer. And the reason for that is because of trying to get, it's not anything to be concerned about, Karen. The idea here is that the state insurance commissioner has been working to get insurance companies to come back to California to offer fire insurance, and to do so at competitive rates. Requiring people to rely on the FAIR plan as their only source of wildfire or fire insurance in a high fire severity zone is a little unnerving. We know of people, for example, in other canyons to the east of you that are spending $10,000 on their wildfire insurance every month. So it becomes extremely outrageous, and we really want to try and help people understand what's going on. And so there are now discounts available if you have proper inspections done of your home, which is exactly what you described, but the requirements of what goes into that report, that's what's changed. Not the fact that, so 80% of what you went through may still be good, but there's probably 20% that's different. Just recently in the last year, we've now added what we call Zone 0 to the reporting of what goes on, and that's the 0 to 5 foot range away from your house and what can burn in that 5 foot area. So there's a lot of stuff that changes there. And one of the areas where we are expert, where we're very happy to share information, is about insurance and how to maximize the best price possible.
Thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to say, I think we've taken all the questions for you, and we appreciate all the information you passed on. That was great between LAPD and West Traffic and you guys. I think we have a lot to think about, and a lot of ways probably that we still haven't discovered to keep ourselves safe. Short of evacuation, it sounds like there's a lot that we can do. So again, I will put you in touch with our committee. I encourage all the area reps to go ahead and reach out, and I'll make your contacts available to everyone. But area reps, I encourage you all, primaries and alternates, to reach out to David and Carl, because it sounds like they do better when they go into smaller communities versus these bigger groups. So let's figure out if we can have a few fire councils, and then I will continue to talk to you guys about a fair similar to what you're going to be doing on November 5th in Brentwood.
Sounds great.
Again, just not to repeat myself, but I do think hardening homes is important for all of us to learn. And then a couple of fire councils, and again, some of the HOAs in the more in the hillside, smaller sort of districts, I think will be helpful. Adaptive lights will be on another agenda so that we can go down that route. Thank you for informing us of that.
And Carl is your guy. He's the one. So feel free to spend as much time with him as he'll tolerate.
Okay. And then Carl,
Yeah.
the agendas, I do get those agendas for your meetings.
Okay.
I'm happy
I was
to.
not able to put the actual agenda on the chat.
I saw that. No problem. I do get them in my inbox and I can send them to everybody, but what are those meetings? So if people log into them, what will they take part in?
Well, the meetings are every third Thursday of each month, 7 p.m.
And
We
what
talk
happens
about
in those meetings?
we talk about things like David just presented. There'll be sometimes a history of a major fire, which is an example of what could happen here, like the Oak Ridge fire, other fires that have occurred in the Los Angeles County and city area. And then we will have speakers. Usually we'll have battalion chiefs or bureau chief or resiliency officers from the LAPD as guest speakers. We've had in the past, we had a guest speaker from Maui after the Maui fire, talk to us about what they experienced, and somebody from Oak Ridge Mobile Home Estates that burnt 400 and something homes back in the Sayre fire several years back. So
okay, so they're theoretical.
And
so
we
they're
have
discussion oriented. The action part you'll do with our smaller communities.
Yeah, when it comes to the details and the steps that you'll take to become a fire safe council, that'll be in person.
Okay, and then
with your community, and so that we can work things out and start guiding it through the process.
okay, and then my last question, it's 7:28. We're going to be done by 7:30, but fire councils, my impression from having spoken to you and heard you today is that fire councils are smaller groups and you can have multiple fire councils, let's say in the community of Pacific Palisades in various areas of the Palisades. Is that correct? Or would you just have one fire council for all of the Palisades?
That's something that we have to discuss because the homeowners associations have to be nonprofits. And if that's the case, then it makes things easier.
Okay.
Because we don't have to go through the IRS for all that. But it's best that we discuss that with the committee and figure out those details.
Okay, so we are a nonprofit, but again, we're kind of all encompassing. We're sort of an umbrella group, and I thought my impression was that you would do better with the smaller groups, but
not necessarily. Not necessarily. We're the fire safe council for the entire county, and so underneath us, there's dozens of fire safe councils that are community driven. And for example, in Mountain Gate, MOSMA is the Fire Safe Council in development for 10 HOAs. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter to us whether it's for 20 homes or for 4,000 homes.
Got it. Okay.
But also may depend on how much area you want to manage yourself and your own.
That's true. Yep.
Okay. Got it. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll have the committee be in touch with you. I think that'll be the best starting point. And maybe we will be the fire council. I appreciate it. Thank you, Carl and David Barrett. Carl Ginsberg, everyone, and David Barrett. I will forward the information for the 1019 agenda in case anybody wants to zoom in. But in the meantime, we will get in touch with you and make some plans for the community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure. Thanks for coming. Luke Hamer, do you want to share something before we totally go off topic?
Yeah, real quickly, just a couple of things. One of the big concerns that's come up recently is the intersection of Sunset Monument and La Cruz, and there was a girl hit, injured slightly last week. I've reached out to LADOT, and we're going to study that intersection and figure out what we can do to make it a little safer. That's all.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lou. We've got an agenda to cover and then we have a special meeting at 8. So we're going to move on, but thank you, everyone. So for the record, Barbara Cohen, Janet Anderson, Haldis Topple, and David Carter on the call now. Yep. All right, so moving down this agenda, we have reports and announcements from the chair, which as usual, we're going to skip until we can come back to it. From the officers, let's see, Sue Cole, Beth Holden Garland. Either of you have an update? Sue?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Sue?
Actually, hold on. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I have these two things in. I had a meeting this morning, Miriam, with Marion from Mayor Bass's office.
Oh, great. How'd that go?
I thought you were going to be there. Anyway, we had this Zoom meeting this morning, and we spoke for half an hour, and basically she just asked me for what I thought were all of the major issues in the Palisades. So I got in as many as I could possibly think of, which included crime, homelessness, fear, fire issues at the park, pole top cameras, prosecution of serious criminals. We went through the whole gamut. So I just wanted to tell you, we had a nice meeting. She said she was at the Jubilee.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now. You met today, this morning you met with the new West LA representative for Mayor Bass's office.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And she was great. And
yes, she was at the Jubilee, and she should probably be beginning to connect to our meetings, right? Is that what she plans to do?
Like to come to meetings when she can.
Okay.
I invited her, even without a solid date. I invited her to the holiday
Wonderful
award party.
Yeah.
She took her to go to get the actual physical awards, because I know every year that's a challenge. So now I know how to get a hold of that from the mayor's
now
office.
you have a warm contact.
We had a really nice visit. She was great.
Great.
And that's it.
Wonderful. So yes, she did come to the Jubilee. She had just been hired, and she reached out, and we invited her to the Jubilee. She was there. I met her. She met a few other people. So everyone, you all know this by now. All of our local elected representatives tend to send a rep to our meetings. They all have a field deputy, right? So Michael Amster famously is from CD11, which is our council district. Rod Norouzi, which I'm sure you guys are now pretty familiar with. He's from our Senate, our state senator. Skylar Payab comes from our assembly member. We haven't had a mayoral West Side rep in a really, really long time. The last good one we had was Ami, I want to say, Ami Fieldsmeyer. I don't know how many of you guys remember him, but that was Mayor Garcetti, and it was a few years ago. So she is Marianne is her name. So she's recently appointed, and we're hoping that she engages with us. Not much the mayor does for us directly, but it's always nice to have them be engaged and be aware of some of our priorities. So I thank you, Sue.
I was listing all of our problems. So she deals with CD11 and CD5. So anyway,
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for bringing her into our sphere. Beth, I know you do a lot. I don't know. I think you said you didn't have anything that you wanted to share, but just so everybody knows, Beth was a huge help for the Jubilee. And so I thank her. Dave, sorry, go ahead. Okay, so Dave Card is on the call. He's our chair emeritus. I don't think he has any updates. I think he's on the call for 8 p.m., and he's in a different time zone, so not too much pressure. But Dave, anything?
No, but I will be on for the special meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. So at large and area reps, Haldis Topple. Oh, you're mute. You are muted still.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to celebrate the reemergence of the Marquez Block Party. It's always been a great, fun staple in the Palisades, and all the Palisades is invited, of course. Lots of merchants participation, fire trucks, police cars, face painting, balloon art, magician, bounce house, and more. And you're all invited, and I encourage you to let your neighbors know about the party. There'll be giant hot dogs. Usually we serve between 300 and 400 people, kids and dogs included.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Haldis. Okay, any other area reps with updates? No. Okay, so I'm gonna go over to area 1 for a second. So as you all know, the last couple of meetings, we've talked about the major construction that's proposed for Castellamar and the area 1 area. You all probably remember, I think it was our last meeting, we talked about restating our request for an EIR and fortifying it a little bit. We talked about the community plan and some of the verbiage in the community plan that might point away from this kind of construction being allowed, especially in the hillside streets in Castellamar. So we worked on a letter that we sent. I think I linked it in the, I can send it to all of you. You can find it online on our website, and I'm pretty sure I linked it in the last newsletter I sent out. But we wrote a pretty robust letter, and we sent it to the West LA Area Planning Commission. We also sent it to Tracy and Jeff, both of whom I at least had a chance to see in the last couple of weeks. And I'd been able to mention to them specifically that this letter was going to come through and that we were very concerned about this construction going on in Area 1. So today I actually got a call back from Jeff, who's the planning director at the council office. And he had read the letter. He understood that we were very serious about requesting an EIR. I did mention to him, so I have to say, my assumption is that these people get a lot of letters, and I rarely expect them to read every word of what we send. I could be wrong, but I pretty much always feel like we have to parse it out for them because it's highly unlikely that they're reading every word. So I said, you know, in addition to all the things that we had put into our last letter, I want you to know that this one actually refers to language in our community plan. He said he was going to take a look at that. And then he said, well, why are you guys asking, especially like specifically for an EIR? And I said, well, because we definitely want to know the impact on the area, and because we don't seem to be getting any traction in any other way to get this person, this developer, to scale down the scale of the home. He said that he happened to agree that the homes should probably be scaled down. He said the council office had asked for three things. One was a reduction in scale. The other one was the quarterly reports, and they're willing to up that, but the quarterly reports to the community. And then the other one was to mitigate the construction impact. He said the developer had come back with a very nominal reduction, apparently about 2% on every home, which is, negligible. So he said that he was going to go back to them for more. He also said he wanted to find out what kind of CEQA exemption they had applied for. And I wonder if Joanna, Cindy, or Murray, you know what kind of CEQA exemption, because he thought he might be able to find a loophole or a hole in that exemption. He said he was going to go look at it too, but as a whole, as a general rule, I said, we're very concerned about the scale. And if the EIR slows this guy down and enables us to find other ways to sort of, limit the scale of these developments in these very tiny hillside streets, that's what we're happy to do. So he said he would take a more serious look at our letter. He definitely hears us and he understands us. That's the most that I can say to you. He did reiterate something, Murray, that I know you've heard before. I don't think it's music to your ears, Area 1 reps, but he did reiterate that when developers come in and they put caissons down and kind of develop hillsides that are unstable, they do tend to walk away with more stable hillsides. So he reiterated that again. He said that the city would be watching this developer, and that by the time they were done, that landslide area would probably be somewhat fortified. So that's a repetition of what you've heard before, but I'm just delivering. Okay. All right. So that's our Area 1 update. Kimberly, do we have an Area 5 update? Yes, absolutely. We do not have a Area 5 update. All right. Organizational updates. Courtney Macker?
Well, it was sort of covered a lot with the traffic officer that was on.
Yes, purposefully so.
So I just think if we could get, as you also said, but just better communication between, Officer Espin didn't know that this thing had gone on in Santa Monica. Well,
right.
That things going on in Santa Monica is our backyard. So we really need to have that communication. Lou said we have some leeway with Waze, asking them not to go this way or that way. I'm wondering if we could do, I know we discussed previously about putting together like a local community app, because for social events and whatnot, but I think it could also be really helpful in terms of our specific, because we are very unique where we are, our specific, they said that I understand that these officers don't have time to stop and tweet about something or post something on social media. But if, let's say, one can be in charge of social media for our area, we see it on Citizen or Nextdoor, we're able to blast it out to this app that lets people know, and ideally which way to go around it. as well, because two things happening at the same time. You're like, oh, no big deal, just go up to PCA. Wait a minute, now or Sunset, now
Right.
everyone's been there from Waze. So if we could just sort of get all of that together, just sort of echoing what we discussed before.
Well, I thank you again for bringing something important to the board. I totally agree with you. And the idea for the app wasn't so much necessarily for social purposes as it was to be able to get really important information out to everybody. So versus just 2 or 3 people maybe who, you know, get to text with Brian Espen, it really was this idea that information would come and flow out to the community in a much better way. And there's no place where it's more important than in these ways that impact our safety, our public safety. Brian, I know you're on the call, but I tend to agree with Courtney. Anything that goes on in Santa Monica, you know, theoretically is SMPD, but it definitely is going to impact us. Do you have a counterpart in Santa Monica where you can say, hey, if something goes on and you think it's going to spill over to the Palisades, let me know?
I guess, I mean, I have contacts for their homeless outreach team, the officers there, but it's kind of the same thing. If they're on duty, if they're working, if they're aware of everything happening, and like, for example, the Santa Monica incident, I knew that there was a guy on the Ferris wheel, but I wasn't aware that they shut down the tunnel,
Right.
and that there was supposedly a bomb threat of some sort. So that was news to me. But yeah, I mean, I have just kind of like my position. I have contacts over there, but it's if they're working and if they're able to pass out that information. I mean, ultimately, I understand the urgency and the need for this communication, but if I'm not here or Santa Monica, the officers that I know are not there, I don't know what else can do for facilitating better communication other than the residents kind of letting each other know, like we guys were just talking. I mean, I think the app is a great idea for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something that we can to discuss for sure.
But sorry to interrupt, Brian, but isn't there like a police scanner where everyone sort of knows where to go when there's an emergency? Is there any way that you could tap into, like, someone got a 911 call that said there's a guy on the Ferris wheel, like, for you to not know that, like, how can we make that?
Well, sorry, you broke up on that last part.
No, I said, how can we facilitate you being able to access that information, like that borders on our, our community? Because it's not like this was, 6 miles away. It's like walking distance from the Palisades. And it's not just like, oh, it's inconvenient. It's like, we have to go not just to Pilates, but also to go, because like my kids are now in school in Malibu, and that's like I need to get someone to pick them up. Like, everyone has a lot of moving parts, and can you access their 911 calls?
Yeah.
Like, if all goes out close to 90272, can you be notified about it? Is there any way to make that?
We don't have the ability to tap into another city. Like, for example, even for LAPD, Wilshire Division, which is our bordering LAPD station, is on the other side of La Cienega on the east end.
Mhm.
We're on different frequencies. So if something happens in Wilshire Division, I don't even know what's happening in Wilshire Division, and that's still LAPD. So it's even that much more difficult when you're trying to encompass other departments, other city departments, city governments, like Santa Monica or even Malibu sheriffs. Once you get north of coastline or into Topanga area, that's now the sheriff's area. I don't know. I don't get information from them unless we're actively doing an investigation where we kind of partner up, where we're looking for a person or clues or something. We normally don't just kind of call each other and say, hey, by the way, this is what's going on in our area. Because my contacts that I have in the sheriff's department and Santa Monica, we're all kind of different schedules, different job specific positions. So in what you're talking about, trying to get information, like tap into the 911, we don't have that ability other than like what the Citizen app, or I know for the fire department, they use Pulse is one for the fire department that,
right.
But most of that stuff, just so you guys are aware, and I'll bring this up really quick, most of that stuff just gives you a generic initial call. It doesn't mean that is what's actually has occurred or happened. So for example, the Citizen app, I know a call came out in, I think it was like Cheviot Hills area, This was one of the senior leads brought this up, and I'm just kind of reiterating. A call came out in the Cheviot Hills area of a homicide call or something, and there was police helicopters on the citizen app, or shooting. I'm sorry, it was a shooting homicide. And all the community members were reaching out to the SLO for that area, and he's like, no, that's not what happened. Somebody heard a backfire of a car and said it was a shooting and somebody was down, which that was not the case. But on the citizen app, it came out as a shooting with a person down. So just be mindful, like a lot of those apps, you might get the initial call, but that may not be what actually occurred or what the investigation came out of. So if you have those specific questions, that's when you reach out to me.
Okay, so I know Lou has a question, and so does Hecco, but I just want to say, Sergeant Scott Alpert, if I'm correct, if I'm wrong, tell me, but Sergeant Alpert at LAPD is tasked with the community outreach, right? So if we were
he's in charge of our office, yes.
Okay, so if we were to have an app, if we were to have a community app that could get information out to Palisadians, you're saying that not you, the SLO, but like somebody at LAPD who's sitting at a desk doesn't have a mechanism by which they can scan incidents within a 10-mile radius and on different wavelengths, presumably, and be able to tell us about them? Wow.
No, because we don't have the personnel or somebody to sit behind a computer to monitor social media.
No. I'm not asking about social media. I'm asking literally about incident reports that impact various communities that can be noticed to communities. I'm not talking about social media at all, frankly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So we don't. It's basically us, the senior leads for our areas. We're the main, I guess, mediating for the community and the department. But we're not here all the time.
Yeah.
That's the problem is
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm shocked, honestly. Okay, Julie, let's see what Julie's trying to show us. But again, I'm surprised that there's
Santa Monica police have a very quick and accurate Twitter page. I always go there. They are here, it tells you the minute those helicopters are up, I looked and it says a guy on the Ferris wheel with a bomb, avoid the area. You could then tell that there were closures, and then they update it. They're very good. So that's what I do. I just look at that. That is their official statements where they've gotten into things and then they're releasing the information.
And they're quick about
we
it,
all go
that is something that we have looked or are looking at with our command about our social media footprint. We don't have a very good one, I'll tell you that, obviously. Something like Santa Monica, they have a group of officers dedicated to that. It's not just one person like a senior lead that just sits there for their 8-10 hour shift and then they're done. There's somebody that's constantly on that platform, either daily or 24 hours a day. Even we just don't have the resources. We do have a social media person assigned that works in our station that does our social media for West LA, but that person, it's only one person, and it's predominantly putting out, like when we do community events or activities, stuff like that. I think I 100% agree with you. I think like Julie said, what they have in Santa Monica, that is a great platform where we should be able to have something that we can 24 hours a day send out on a Twitter or something. We should have that. But I mean, that's something I can reach out to our command, but I can tell you just right at this moment, we're 18 officers short at our station already. So anybody that's able-bodied to go out in the field, they're out in the field. So I don't know. I mean, that's something I can bring up to the captain if we can push on it. But I love that idea, and I think it's a great idea.
Well, thank you. Maybe we'll put that into the captain. Courtney, 10 minutes to 8. We've got 2 hands up. Do you mind? Tell me, and then I'm going to go to Lou.
No, I know a lot of officers are out on disability. So maybe the ones that aren't able-bodied that are still getting paid, perhaps might be able to do something remotely to sort of update things. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. It's something I'll definitely bring up to the captain and sergeant. I think, I mean, I'm 100% behind that. I think that's something that we can do better for sure.
Thank you so much. If you'll report back to us about that, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Precious little time.